News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with you until the top of the hour. We've got an interesting show, lots of questions. And one of the topics we're going to talk about comes in from one of our listeners. And the listener's asking, how much do you tip the movers if they're moving you? We'll review what the answer is in a little bit. First, let's talk to our great folks who are joining us. Lee Harris, legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow. And you can reach Lee and her folks at 649-7964. Good to have you here, Lee. Also, we have Randy Rocky, Swan Financial, and you can reach Randy on his phone at 645-0736. I just realized Lee's using a virtual background of San Francisco, the bridge, except she's driving because you got a seatbelt on. So I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll figure that one out. Are you with us, Lee? You got us? She's sitting there smiling. Okay, Randy, we may have a lot more. The internet is lousy today. For some reason, we're having some serious problems. So hopefully we'll get Lee back in here. Let's start with Randy questions. Mike called in and left me this message. He says, how much can he gift to his daughter to help with a down payment without incurring any penalties or fines with the IRS?
Well, I know you can give $15,000 a year without any penalties or fines, and that's the answer I'm going to give. I have a feeling there might be something special with that scenario on an actual house, but maybe not. But I know $15,000 is absolutely something you can get there every year to anybody without a tax penalty for anybody.
It might be worth it for him to talk to an accountant, right? Don't you think that's probably the better thing to do is talk to an accountant?
If it's above $15,000, yes, it would be.
All right. If you want to see a replay of the show, by the way, you can go to LouisvilleAnswers.com because we're doing the COVID shows. You send me an email if you've got a question, bob@WeSellLouisville.com. Put radio question subject line in the body. Send me the question itself. You can see this repeat on YouTube. Again, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That'll take you to the YouTube channel. I'll tell you why, because it's very funny to see Lee Harris driving, but yet with the background of the San Francisco bridge. That in itself is worth the price of admission. Yeah.
You can see how to drive safely across the bridge.
Yeah, no kidding. Lee, this question for you. Jonathan sent us an email saying he was online, saw a company that just does licensed crawl space inspections. I had never heard of that. And legally, is there a difference in your mind between a licensed crawl space inspector and somebody else? Not either, right?
No, I've never heard of a person who's licensed only to do crawl spaces, but you have a home inspection license. So if they have a license for that, they can do anything that's involved in the house. But I don't think that's a specific license issued by the Department of Housing in Kentucky.
And I'll check with Brad Lawler when we have him next couple of weeks, what his thoughts are on that question. Meanwhile, let's move over to Laura. She writes in that there's a fence on her property that extends onto her neighbor's property and has been there for 20 years. If Laura sells, does she need to have an easement? Or does something have to be done with an easement because the property's been on the neighbor's property, the fence, for 20 years?
There's something called adverse possession in Kentucky, and it's 15 years. So basically, it has to be there openly, hostilely. That doesn't mean that they're fighting over it. It just means that it's against the owner's, interest to have it there, because it's not their property. And adversely and continuously for 20 years. If that's happened, then probably wherever that fence is now belongs to the other party because it has been there over 20 years. But you could either just have an easement done just to kind of clarify it and just say everybody's on the same page, or the other party can seek, if they don't agree, the other party can seek adverse possession through the courts. It's not just, it just doesn't automatically happen. You have to seek it, and then obviously you have to get a new legal description. But most people just have a little easement, and say, oh yeah, it's been there for 20 years. I don't care. And they file a little, maybe they pay them $10 or $100 or something. Or of course the fence can be taken down. So there's
It's a way to work around anything. All right. We move
Right,
back.
exactly. We see that all the time.
Kim wrote us an email. He expects a large return on his taxes this year. Approximately, he says 20,000. He's wondering, should he put the money towards his house and paying down his equity, or invest it in stocks or somewhere else? What would you recommend with a 20,000 windfall from the federal government?
Yeah, well, it's like my children. I'm going to have them in debt up to their eyeballs with investment properties at the age of 25 to 35 to 40. And now that I'm 53, you'll never see me, never say never, and you will never see me borrow another dollar, and I'll sell loans. So it really does depend on the age, because, cash is very important when you're younger, and if you're trying to build, wealth as far as property and things of that nature. And trust me, not everybody has my philosophy, but that's kind of the way I live. So to answer his question is, if he's in that age bracket I told you about, that's the way I would handle the money.
So repeat that, because I kind of got lost in your philosophy. So 20K.
Yeah, and mortgages, they're going to do a lot of investment properties, commercial property, and they're going to be in really high debt. I mean, really, sincerely. Now, again, there's going to be assets to hopefully offset it if everything ever goes south. And when you're younger, I think you can take a lot more risk. And as you get, I'm 53 now.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go out and invest in a property and spend the money anymore. I'm not going to go out and put $2 million toward a commercial property or something of that nature. I just don't want to get in debt like that. And so my opinion is if you're younger, yes, cash is king. And I would leave it to put towards down payments on properties. If you're older, I would pay off debt.
Got it. All right. That makes a lot of sense. I heard it loud and clear. Lee, Tony sent an email saying that he has his home on the market for sale, and his real estate agent called and wanted to get a buyer in there, but the agent would not be available. The agent was asking if he could send the buyer in without anybody being there. And Tony says no, but he's questioning, why do I have an agent if the buyer's agent wants to send somebody? What's going on? What do you think? Is it legal in our area? I know in some other areas you can allow to send a buyer in without a representation, a buyer agent, but what would you suggest at this point?
Well, what I'd say is it's really the seller's decision. It's the seller's house.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, obviously, you have an agent is so that somebody that you don't know is not coming into your house randomly when you're not home, because obviously most people are not going to do anything, but some do. So he can certainly say, okay, I don't agree with that. Reschedule for a time when your agent can be with you. He could ask his agent to be present. He could ask if he can be present. There's nothing illegal about it. It's just uncomfortable for, it would be uncomfortable for me just to have some random person in my house looking in every closet and every drawer, without any kind of licensed person there to protect my interest.
Yeah. And just so you know, in other states, there are companies that are actually their model. The way they've set this up is the buyer calls a number and they get permission to go into a house with you as the seller not being there and no agent representing them. And it's strange in my book, and just because you can have anybody walking in your house. But that's what...
Right, very weird.
It's very strange, but the answer is, I think you nailed it, Lee. It's really, what do you as the seller want? If you want to let them in, fine. But my suggestion, someone should be home, whether it's buyer, agent with the buyer, or a seller or a seller's agent. That is, in my mind, that's a must. If you want to talk about selling your home and doing it practically and without people walking in, without you knowing, I mean, there are a lot of questions when it comes to selling your home, and that's what my job is when we're not on the radio on Sunday mornings, and that is meeting with you, talking about how to properly list your home, get it on the market, what the goods and bads are, answer your questions. You can reach out to me a couple of ways. Go to sellmyhome.com or sellmyhomebob.com, or just call me at 376-5483. Again, 376-5483. All right. Randy, Lori has an interesting problem here. She's accumulated a lot of credit card debt. And in this email she sent to us, she says it's reaching about $40,000. She's wondering if it makes sense to do a home equity loan, take the money and pay down the higher interest rates on her credit card. And she thinks she's got about $100,000 in equity in her current home. How would you handle a suggestion? What should Lori do?
Well, if she has a lower interest rate right now, yes, I would absolutely do a home equity line of credit. You know, it's a lot of debt questions today. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
The other situation is if she has a higher interest rate, you know, in the fives, which most people don't now, but if she does, then I would refinance the whole mortgage and put it all on a 30-year fixed mortgage. But if she has a lower interest rate, yes, I would do a home equity line, and I would absolutely do pay out the credit cards.
A word of caution on this, Randy. Home equity loans, their rates fluctuate, correct?
That is correct. So right now they're predicting that by the end of the year, prime is 3 3/4, and they're predicting it's going to go up as much as a 3/4 point to a 1.5 to try to hold off the inflation scenario. So, but you know, as you well know, Bob, I mean, interest rate credit cards are about 16%. So you're going to drop, you know, somewhere around 10 to 12% doing it this way. And they both fluctuate. So that's why I would do it.
You're still ahead of the game if you do a home equity loan to pay down the credit card. Got it.
I really recommend that people get a home equity if they don't use it, just for an emergency. You don't ever have to use it. They don't cost anything. So I would recommend doing a home equity line on their house.
Hey, one more quick question. While we're talking to Randy on the Zoom call, he's at the gas station. What's the price of gas where you're pumping up right now?
It is a wonderful $4.13.
Oh, geez. Wow. Well, it's better than some places, especially better than the West Coast. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, one of our listeners asks, how much do you tip a mover? That's a really good question, and we'll talk a little bit about it.
That is a good question.
It is, yep. Randy Rocky with Swan Financial, who's currently tanking up his car with gas so he can come out and help you with your loans. 645-0736. Also, Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow, 649-7964. My son Greg's off today. Actually, he's working on more photography, more of our listings. You can reach me anytime at 376-5483 to get out there and help you get your home on the market, or just talk about what the process is, free of charge, no obligation. 376-5483. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show. We're doing our Zoom show, so if it sounded a little weird today, it's the internet. What can I tell you? With us, Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow at 649-7964. Also, we've got Randy Rocky here, Swan Financial, 645-0736. My thanks, of course, Barbara Corcoran, who does our help with our commercials. She's a mentor. You've seen her on Shark Tank. Very sweet lady, and I appreciate her friendship. All right, question from our listener, Tony and his wife, Jeanette, listen to us all the time. They wrote in with the following question. We're moving to our first house next week, and we're told that the move would take a full day. With the movers, are they expecting a tip on moving day? And if so, how much do you tip the movers? So, Randy, Lee, we've all moved in the past. Have you got a set dollar figure before I go into what the official response is?
Well, I always give the fast food restaurant worker $1 every time I go through the drive-thru. So I'm one of those guys. So I would probably tip, you know, if there's 4 guys there, I'd probably tip them all about $30 a piece.
30 a piece. All right.
Yes. I believe in tipping. I think it's great to see people actually out working and doing their job.
Yeah.
And you know, we're all very fortunate. I think we all should help each other. So there you go.
Lee, how do you stack up on that one? What are your thoughts?
Last time I moved, I gave my people $50 each, and they were very happy.
Oh,
Whoa!
that's a little more than
Of course they're going to be
you taught
happy.
me.
Yeah,
$50 a piece.
that's hard. That's hard work, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
no kidding. Well, how many movers did you have, Lee?
I think there was 3, and I heard them say as they walked out, "She gave us each $50." So
Wow.
I figured that was a good tip. Yeah.
They want to come back and work for
awesome.
you.
That is awesome, Lee.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Randy, how much gas did you put in your car just now? Because I'm just curious what your total fill-up cost you. Randy was filling up during the break.
Well, I have my little truck, and I don't drive it very often, so I
Yeah.
hope it goes down a little bit. So I only put $20 in.
I got it. All right. Yeah, I hope the price goes down too. All right. So the official word is tipping movers is optional, but most homeowners adhere to the customary practice of, helping out the guys who are helping you to move. A general guideline is, get ready for this, Lee, a tip of $10 minimum per mover for a half day, 4 hours of service, $20 for a full day, that's 8 hours of service. Of course, unless your name is Lee Harris, in which case it's $50 per mover per day. Most homeowners adjust this tip based on the quality of service, the relocation distance, and the difficulty of the move. They may also forego the practice in scenarios when tipping is not customary. I'm not so sure there's a place in this world where tipping movers is not customary, but I would think that if you're going upstairs, a lot of stairs, maybe then you increase the tip. That may be but the general is 10 for half a day per guy or lady. If there's a lady working, $20 per person if they're going for the full day. So that's the official word that we got. All right. So we go back to the questions coming in. And by the way, if you want to get in contact with me to talk about what is the process, not for tipping, but for getting your home on the market, you can go to bobsellmyhome.com or sellmyhomebob.com, or reach me at 376-5483. Ashley bought her first home a year ago, was told at the time it was a manufactured home, meaning the frame and interior were built in some sort of manufacturing facility. Last week, she found out the house is actually a mobile home and that she's really upset. She's wondering what are her rights and should she be concerned about this discrepancy. So, Lee, your thoughts, manufactured versus mobile. There is a difference, right?
Yes, there's a difference. She does have rights if the seller misrepresented the status of the property to her, because it's possible that a manufactured home on that same lot would be worth more than a mobile home on that lot.
Mm-hmm.
A mobile home can, however, be turned into real estate. You have to get a title, just like you do for a car, and you register it, believe it or not, with the fire marshal's office. And then it becomes part of the real estate, which turns it, it's still a mobile home in the way it was built, but it actually now is either set on a foundation or permanently attached to the land. So if there's going to be some difference in the amount that she paid, or she has damages from that, and the seller knew that it actually wasn't a manufactured home. Some people actually use those words interchangeably,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's a manufactured home. But then she would have damages, potentially, that she could seek from the person who sold her the property.
And she has how long? A year from the date that she bought it, or from when she would have known about it?
365 days under the Louisville contract from when she found out about the problem.
Randy,
Yeah.
So there are differences in financing a mobile home as opposed to a home that was stick built and then put on the house or put on a lot. For the most part, most mortgage companies don't finance mobile homes. Am I correct?
We are starting to do more of that.
Really?
And it's yes. But if it's before 1992, no, you cannot do a mobile home. But yes, there is definitely differences on manufactured compared to mobile. On pricing, it's a little more interest rates a little higher on a mobile home because the foreclosure, the values drop a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of factors there that go into play. So yes, you are correct, Bob. There are definitely distinctive differences.
One more difference, maybe you both know. Do you know the difference between an RV and a motor coach? This is not a joke.
No, I don't.
No?
Let's see.
Yeah, RV and a motor coach.
A motor coach is bigger?
Maybe. Anybody else? So typically,
no, I have no clue.
So typically, the RVs, they call them an RV up to a certain price and luxury level. And then above that, if you talk to the people who drive these higher end $1 million plus RVs, they're called motor coaches. I never knew that until recently. But there is a distinction. Maybe it's imposed by the motor RV industry.
Right.
Because they don't want
these, they're better.
Yeah, if you own a motor coach and you have an idea, if it's not just some fictional term made up because they want to make a distinction between an RV and a motor coach, email me, bob@WeSellLouisville.com. I'd love to get more information for you on this. William wrote us, Randy, in an email saying he's considering buying a second home on a lake. And he wants to know, what does he do to prepare for getting a mortgage on the lake property, and what does a mortgage company look at in terms of income and credit score for a lake property, a second property?
Yes, you could go down to 580, and you're going to have to put on a second home now. It is the same pricing as investment property. It's what Fannie and Freddie have now done. So the interest rate's going to be about 0.5 to 0.75 point higher than on a primary residence, but you can still put, there are situations where you can still put, 5% down to get into the lake house. So that's about, it's normal procedures with those things I just discussed.
But I would also really suggest talking to an accountant, because aren't there new tax consequences with regards to second properties that may be detrimental to some level? Randy, are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that.
All right.
Interesting.
Yeah,
no, I'm not aware of that.
All right. Well, we'll check into that. But just make sure, William, before you do it, you check with everybody, including an accountant. Lee, Sarah has about an acre of land on her Oldham County property. And she has been watching TV shows about tiny homes, these little homes that we're seeing a lot of lately.
Yes.
She's wondering what you need in the way of a building permit to put a tiny home in her backyard if she already has a house on her property. Again, she says she's got about an acre of land. Can she put a teeny house on it as well for maybe income producing purposes?
I'm sure she can, because there's enough space there, but she will have to go to the planning and zoning, and that's a process. You got to pay a fee, and you got to put in your plan, and you got to get their approval. But if she has an acre of land and she wants to put a tiny home, that's kind of like putting a garage or something else. Unless there's some objection from someone who's legitimate, then I would say that's probably going to be approved.
It's an interesting question. We haven't had one of these before, but these tiny homes are building in popularity. And I'm just wondering if down the road, they're going to be changes in zoning ordinance requirements, or basically relaxing of these, because they don't take up as much room and maybe not as many people in the house. Can they, if you're on a septic system, could there be different requirements, or a sewer system? But it is something to talk about. And right. Anyway, I think you nailed it on here, is to check with the building permit folks to make sure you don't do anything before you move and spend any money on this. because that could be a problematic. We got time for one question more. Randy, Billy keeps hearing different words regarding ready to buy a house. What's the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification? She wants to know what is the difference.
Pre-approval means that you have thoroughly looked at basically the documents and reviewed and verified income, employment. Pre-qualification is just you took the information in and you just looked it over. Basically, did not do the due diligence of really doing the details of making sure the income is correct, the W-2s and all the different things of that nature. And so we don't do pre-qualifications. We just do pre-approvals at Swan. You just can't do that in this market or any market for that matter. You have to have a very valid pre-approval for your real estate agents. It's terrible if you don't.
It could be detrimental to you being able to buy a home with the wrong type of letter that you present.
Pre-approval means you've really done your detail and done the you've done the detail.
We're out of time. If you're thinking about buying or selling, you can reach me anytime. And incidentally, we have a free no obligation booklet, hundreds of useful tips. For a copy, send me an email, bob@WeSellLouisville.com. In the subject, put tips for selling. We'll send it out to you. And you can reach me anytime at 376-5483. You can reach Lee Harris and the folks over at Limestone Title and Escrow that does a great job in closings. You can reach Lee at 649-7964. And if you're in the market for a mortgage or refinancing your current mortgage, Randy Rocky is the guy to see. Swan Financial is his company, 6450736. Thank you, folks, for being here. We will see you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.